Hey everyone, thanks for joining today. I'm Dylan. I'm a solutions architect here at Decisions. So if you guys have any questions or anything you would like to go over, please just put a comment in the chat or just speak up. Oh, see, there's a question. You can go ahead and put it in the chat if audio isn't working for you. Okay, so how do you use a combo box for the mobile form? I'm using a combo box on the form which allows the user to choose affected end user. However, whenever it's run on mobile, it doesn't load and the user can't type in the combo box? That is a very good question. Let's see. I personally have not worked with any of the mobile forms before, but let's go ahead and just give it a shot. Let's see. Mobile form. Let's go here. So just my initial thoughts is this might be a support ticket that you would want to submit just from my lack of experience with mobile forms. But we can go ahead and try to work this out. See. Let's put out a grid. Let's see. Layout, grid layout. Let's pull out a drop down. Just give it something. Out. Let's display email, and let's say our source is from a flow. So this would be my first troubleshooting. Do you have a source that's populating this form or this drop down values? So right now I'll just do a flow to populate this example. Let's see. Let's just go and create a new one. Get all accounts. And what we're going to do here is use a fetch step. Entities. We're going to go ahead and fetch all accounts. Okay, so this flow will be what we use to populate it, and let's just drag a button. Yep, sorry for the absolutely terrible form design. It is not my strong suit. Go into another tab, call this form. Okay, let's see. So this one populated, of course, it's probably not the same issue you're seeing. So what my first troubleshooting would be if you are using the combo box on the mobile form and it's not showing or letting users put data into it. My first check would be, is the data getting populated correctly into that drop-down box, whether you chose it as a data name, passed it in through the flow, whether you selected it as static data, or you populated it through running a flow. So those would be kind of my first troubleshooting areas for that. But I wish I could provide some more kind of troubleshooting techniques for this one in particular, but I would recommend submitting a support ticket for this if that does not fix your issue. Left click on the flow and run it on integration. Yeah, let's give that a shot. Let's see. Let's see. Integration is not configured. I seem to have some troubles running this through an integration, so I'm not sure if I'll be able to demo that for you right now to debug that. But I would be happy to kind of follow up with you after this call, or follow up with that support ticket for you. So I see you have a question, Josh. Do you want to kind of clarify on this?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so yeah, I'm looking just to understand the different ways to have an email sent to a client which has a form. So in a case entity, I have a user action, and the user action shows a form.
Mhm.
And my use case is that sometimes we receive data via channels outside of decisions or our in-house server. So sometimes we have to manually input in a form.
Yep.
Or sometimes we send that form via email and the client fills it in by email and sends it. So yeah, I just started exploring when I have my show in my user action, I have my show form, the form pops up in my case view, and I want to have, I have a save button, and I wanted to have a button that also sends the form by email so the client can fill it in by email.
Got it. Okay. Huh.
Interesting, or?
That I believe it's been done before. Personally, I have not done that before.
Okay.
But it's got me thinking on it. So within your case entity, you'd have the option to send the form as an email to get filled out. Could that just be like an assignment that gets sent out at that point? That form is now an assignment.
Yes.
And
it could. Yep. So it could be sent at first as an assignment.
yep.
And if not replied, then my internal user can just fill it in the form for the client.
Got it. Okay.
Yep. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. So I think that might work for you.
Okay.
Let me think. I can't really think of another approach to this. Let's say you have your action form, your user comes in, they say we need to email this now. Instead of an action, how can we get that across? Let's see.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have, because the timing. So I'm dealing with the due diligence process, and timing changes by case. So that's why at first I wanted to set in the flexibility to have the email send button. Or a trigger action. Maybe it just has to be when the state is changed, that my user actions also have trigger actions, and when the state changes, those emails are sent to client. That could be a way.
Yeah, you could have the trigger flow automatically send that out there.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yep.
Great.
Okay. Yeah. Hopefully that helps you out a little bit.
Yep, it helps out. And so that it's possible to send the form via email to a kind of external user. And can the external user fill in the form in the email, or would that be a link that redirects to decisions?
My first impression for that would be it's a link that redirects you to decisions, but that's not to say that that's not the only approach to it.
Okay.
Let me think. Let's see what we can do.
Sí, eso porque si me dicen, por ejemplo, ahorita estuvieron preguntados, ese distribuidor fue autorizado para un solo. O sea, literal, parece como de cuánto vale la hora.
What could we do? So form.
O sea, esa fue por cantidad de trade, no por cantidad de dinero.
Definitely the assignment, but I want to think on what we could do on wait on external system. Let's see what we could do here.
Is that a default form?
Yeah, so this is just essentially it's a step that waits for something to trigger it to continue on. I don't actually think this would be the right approach, but Let me send you over the documentation on this because it could be semi-useful.
Okay, I'm following along here. So yeah, I found that. I didn't know that existed. That's good to know.
Yeah, wait on external step. You set it up to wait. So what my thoughts are on this is it would wait for that email to be filled out. But then I'm trying to think of how the user filling out that data through the email would get back into decisions.
Yeah.
That's the part I'm having trouble thinking through.
Okay.
Let's,
Yeah. So I have a case entity, and I could just do so the way I'm working is every form is its own database structure. So, and that makes it simple in saving or inserting to case entities because that's all related to the parent folder.
Yeah.
So maybe it could just be a batch insert after the show form, wait on external system form.
It could be. That very well, I think, could.
I'll play around with that.
Okay. Yeah. Now this might not be the end all solution on it. I haven't really worked with this in a while, so it's kind of foggy to me right now. But it is a possibility that you can make something with this work.
Okay, great. I'll explore over.
Yeah, because what you have with the wait on external every X amount of time, and the flow does pretty much whatever you want it to. So you could see, this is where I don't know the process, what you would want to see if someone's filled out a form on an email. That's where I don't know if it would work.
Okay, yeah, I have to do some trial and error there. Yeah, so I would want, so external client enters on the form via email. Let's say I do a batch insert into my structure, which is associated to the parent folder ID, case ID. And then my internal user has to fetch that and review it. And yeah, that's the internal piece.
Yeah, I think if you could somehow get a link into that email and open up that form somehow that way, I think that might be the easiest approach. Is getting a link to decisions in that email and filling it out that way. But of course, this could work after a little bit of trial and error, something along these lines.
Okay.
Okay. Did you have any other questions that you want to cover?
No.
Okay. So is there anybody else with any questions? If not, we still have about 10 minutes left. So if you have any questions come up, just feel free to put them in the chat or ask them. In the meantime, though, I could do a quick demo on what external truth tables look like and why they're useful. So external is, well, first off, is everybody familiar with what a truth table is in decisions? Is basically just a truth table is a rule where you can put in different rows that you would want your conditions to run against. And if those rows become true, you can get your designated output. So when building a standard truth table, let's go here, standard truth table. Let's go truth table 1. You would set some inputs on it. Let's in this case just say a first name. Name. And you could put what your statement would be here. So let's say first name equals. And if it equals what we want, we put true. And here's your rows. You manually fill out these rows. Let's just put my name. And if you want to add more, you'd manually have to come in here and add different users in different outcome scenarios. So it could be a bit of a tedious process, and it could be that this doesn't allow you to really scale. And if you need modifications on the fly, you have to come in and manually edit this truth table. So the alternative to this is what we call an external truth table. And what that does is allow all of this data to be managed by some external source. That could be an integration, that could be a CSV file, that could be a database connection, or just a standard decisions database table. So if we were to say, let's build a external truth table, it would be under the truth table options and then external data truth table. So this looks a little bit different. So let's work with our native account structure and decisions, and we're going to say if first name equals on this. So we're going to want to evaluate still, again, first name. That's going to be an input to our truth table. Close this. And let's say our output data, we're going to want to put as another string. Let's say if first name's true this time, we want to return someone's last name. So we could remove default data because we don't want that. Now we want to evaluate if first name equals. So rather than adding a bunch of rows into here, what we have to do is set up our data source to populate this truth table. So with that, this is where you'll be able to use anything from external database connections to native decisions data types. And for this example, we'll just use the native account structure. So if we go to account data source, this is what we want to populate our truth table from. And the data fields we really need in this case are just first name. Let's see. First name and last name. So we now have a report of all first names and last names of our data source, of our account data source and decisions. What we need to do now is, since we have a input of first name equals, that's what we want to evaluate against, you would have to go to your first name column, and the title would be that. So this is now telling the back end that we want to evaluate that rule from column 1 against the first name column on this report. And last name's the same, output's going to be last name, but it automatically got selected because the name was the same. So if we save this, and this works just like the normal report designer. You can put filters on here to narrow down that data if you would like, and it would all be reflected on the truth table. So like, let's go with the good one right here. Let's say first name is empty, or we don't want empty, we want not empty. That's what we want. First name is not empty. So we want everything populated with users with just first names. So now we could save that. Once it's saved, we'll close out of here. Now you could see our truth table automatically populated with all of that data from our account source, which we set. We didn't have to manually add this rows. And the reason this could be a scalable solution is because every time you add a new account in decisions, you don't have to modify this truth table. It'll be automatically reflected because it pulls the latest data from that table. So on top of using native decisions types, there's a couple other sources you could use. Like I mentioned, external table and another popular one. So since it's like a normal reporting source, you can always choose everything in decisions. You can choose external connections if you have it set up. But for this one in particular, you're also able to use an Excel or CSV data source. So with this, you would just upload your CSV, and it will automatically populate for you. One thing to keep in mind though, I do not believe you could populate the CSV at runtime. So if you have a CSV that's changing, you have to come back in and manual and upload that new CSV in here for that data to be reflected. So same as before, we want to evaluate first name.
Question.
Yeah.
On importing as a file, CSV or XLSX, if it's an XLS with multiple worksheets, is there a feature to pick which worksheet to import?
Let's see. Yep, you can put worksheet index.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Would it be impossible to then pull data from this truth table into a flow?
No, you could definitely do that. You could run this truth table in a flow and then pull out that data. So would you want to just pull out your results from that, or kind of just the data from the CSV?
Data from the CSV, specifically
So,
Excel, yep.
so there's actually some other steps you could use just to pull data from that CSV.
Yeah, I've seen the import and get all cells. Yep, I've used those before. This is the first time I'm seeing it done with the truth table, so that was interesting.
Yeah, this could be really a scalable solution for truth tables. It's kind of one of our way we're trying to recommend more of, just because it's not as many hard-coded values. This could just change with additions.
Yeah, this seems way simpler than using for example, I have an Excel where I pull from four worksheets. Three of them are lists. Each worksheet is a database structure. So this, I'm gonna play around with this. This actually might be way simpler. And it has it has a UI, just in the report already.
Yep. Yeah, it pulls it up automatically. Let's see.
That's fantastic.
Save.
The registration doesn't
Close.
anything. It's gonna tell the same thing that I'm
Let's see real quick.
finished. I would, I always give
Once this loads, let me just check something.
if that makes you feel a little more comfortable, if you want to go ahead and do
You know what? Actually, I think
fine.
so. This does populate from the truth table, but looking at it further, if you want to just populate the data, like the CSV, let's save this. I believe there's this option as well as a CSV data source. And then to get this data, let's see, CSV data source, you can upload it here, choose your worksheet. Then you can use a run report step, which runs this report and gives you that data within a workflow.
What did you just click?
So under data sources,
okay, data source.
I just went to CSV Excel data source. So I just typed in CSV and it popped up.
Okay, and we have a manual enter for the file. Okay.
Yep, and you would just go here and populate this, whatever Excel you want.
And boom, it auto populates.
Save it.
Do you have any ideas? So the drag and drop or the attach from computer file upload there, would there be a way to pull that from a flow?
Let's take a look at that actually.
That would be huge.
This runtime editable. That might be an option. Let's give it a shot. So we're gonna save this. Because if we use a run report step, you specify.
And quick question, and Joan is authorized to sign contracts and all of this stuff, right?
I don't want that on my screen.
Okay, provided it okay from you, so I can do that, know how it works.
Not sure why that's there. Let's just close this. Actually, I got a tab over here I can bring up. Drag this tab.
Oh, I just realized, so you can pick one worksheet to pull from per report, right?
Yes.
So, okay, got you.
Yep. Let's see, run report.
Okay, so I see where the use of using get all cells or for each row import. I see. Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and then there's a couple others you
dynamic.
can use. You can use a dynamic mapping, dynamic import step. Have you used that one before?
Dynamic data rows.
Importing the step to import dynamically. I can't think of the exact name right now.
I've seen it. I haven't used it.
Okay, got it. 'cause there's a couple things you could also do with dynamic data rows that might be of use. I'll show you a couple other options,
And that
but
way, whenever
let's do
post it in
this.
a couple of days, we can have a commodity.
So this is our Excel
Because you do-
CSV. It looks like you can pass it in dynamically. This now gives you an option to pass in a new CSV and a worksheet index.
That's great. That's just the standard run report step?
Yes.
Okay, it's not from a designer or a user entity. Okay.
No,
Or
and
just-
then the return options, that's where you can specify how you want the data returned. Data rows, all report data, select the data type for it to go to.
You don't need this,
Okay.
That's
great.
Monday, you can start, getting a purchase order on Friday and they'll ship it to.
Okay, yeah, hopefully that helps out.
Yeah,
I think that could work with the different indexes.
You got me some new ideas. I'll play around with them today.
Awesome. Cool. So are there any more questions, or did you want to take a look at the CSV import runtime option?
Yeah, I can't say no to that.
Okay, yeah, I actually have a brief demo of it already set up, I think. Let's see. Runtime options. And box flow, I think I modified to do it.
What version are you running?
This is 7.10, I believe.
Okay, I'm in 7.10 also.
Yep. So what you use the, let's see if I have a sample CSV. I don't remember which one. Let me just see if this works. No, it doesn't. That's the wrong CSV. Let me see if I could remember which. Why did it fail? But I can just walk through what this looks like. What is it failing on? Expected 5, actual 2. Okay, so that to do for this runtime mapping step is that it's looking for you to first specify your output type. So you mentioned you had these as structures already in decisions.
Yes.
So you would specify that as your output type. You would map your file into this step. But one thing that you'd have to put logic and build beforehand is to build this list of dynamic CSV mappings. And what this list does is it tells the step basically from this Excel file where the column's located, what the header name is, and which field to put it into on your object. So the way I do that is at runtime, I use a get row as array step, and that will give me all of my headers. If I grab row 0 from an Excel file, that gives me all headers for this file. I then
it's called get row step.
Yes, let me see.
Okay.
Advanced step. Get row as array.
Okay, great.
So that will just give me an array of strings, which is all my header names.
What would be the difference from the list builder? I've used the create list builder. And I've also used create data to make a empty list, create data, link it to the data type, have it, ignore it, have it empty, and then insert after data is imported from files.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually used list builder before.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's one thing that's interesting. I'll have to take a look into that. But the second step I do is I just initialize my object. I'm trying to remember what the reason was for. Then I initialize a list of my dynamic mappings. So this is just going to be your, go ahead.
Okay. So initialize CSV is a create data step to the data type.
Yep. And I'm just
Build data,
initializing. Yeah, so it just initializes my object for me.
Okay, got you. Following you.
And then I initialize my list of dynamic mappings. This list of mappings is what I'm going to pass into that import step once it's done being built out.
Is that another create data step or is that its?
Yeah, this is just the create data step again.
Okay. Dynamic mapping. Dynamic mapping is a data type.
Yep, it's called dynamic CSV mappings.
Okay, got you.
Yep.
Yeah. The percentage.
So what I do after that is I pass my array of headers from this first step into a for each loop. So for each header that was on my file, I create a dynamic record for. And what that record looks like is my logic was really simple. The field name is the header name, so it would just be item. And the item index was the column that that header came in on. So if you have CSVs that are always kind of changing the row of orders, a lot of our steps don't respect that change of column orders. But this is the way you could kind of fix that, because you say, now my field name. So this is one other thing. You would want to make sure your headers match the field name on your object.
Okay, that's possible. Yeah, I use templates anyway, so I might.
Okay. Yeah. So
Step.
if that's not the case, you would just have to kind of modify your logic to say maybe if this is the name, this is the actual item I want it to on my object. So like if
And is that
column one, go
is
ahead.
this add dynamic mapping? Is that a unique step or is that
This is just the add item to list step.
okay? Great.
Yep. Yeah, so you could put logic in here to say if my header contains this field is what I want to map it to. And essentially the field name is what place on your object, which field on your object do you want the data to be populated from this column with. So that's where you can pass in item index from that for each loop. Input type, so this is a little bit of a limitation. You say if it's a string, number, date, or Boolean. Those are kind of your only 4 options for your field, your data on the fields.
Okay, so all the columns have to have the same data type.
Yeah, you could do logic to say if it's different types, you populate something different here. The only reason, because you could always do a select from flow and you know ahead of time that it's a string or a date, you could have your logic there to determine that.
Okay.
Just in this example, I just had all string values, so I made it string.
Mhm.
But once you build this list for each header, you pass it into your import step, and it will map it automatically for your and output a list of your structure that you wanted to map it to.
Okay. And then after import, I could just batch insert to save to my data structure or save.
Exactly. Yep. You could use a batch insert right after that because it'll be in your type.
Great.
Yeah, this step has been pretty useful when I've worked with clients that have CSVs that are changing constantly. The columns are never in the correct order or the same order. So this step helped get past that point.
Yeah, this is super applicable. Temporary files, for example, sometimes it's hard to get people off Excel, especially with finance or economic calculations. Just Excel's robust. It's hard to get people off it. So using these temporary files and this kind of flow logic is great, kind of as a onboard into more automated processes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so hopefully this helped.
It does, yep.
Are there any more questions for today? If not, I think we can end it for the day. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks to you. I might message you if I have some questions on this.
Okay, yeah, feel free to email me, Dylan@decisions.com.
Dylan@decisions.com. Okay, great. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Have a good one. Bye, everyone.
Bye.